Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I am here with not Karen. What was the other Karen? Definitely not Karen Armstrong. I'm here with Karen Thompson, and she's someone I've known for a while. She has written a book called Islam in a Nutshell, and I believe this is going to be a fantastic resource for be you a priest, be you a student, be you just any layperson that wants to understand Islam or discuss Islam or get involved with Islam on social media, where we can start to discuss the facts. She's agreed to join me and discuss her book. I'm very glad for that. And so, welcome, Karen. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Lloyd. It's been a pleasure. We've had a number of chats over the years, and so I'm kind of excited to do this. And you're one of the ones that kind of spurred me into looking into Islam a little bit deeper, especially Sharia. And I just find that absolutely fascinating, that whole topic. And so this is all culminated in, you know, most of the books are big, thick, 700-page tomes that are, for example, I've got Muhammad's Sirah here. I mean, it's 700 pages. It's a little off-putting if you just want to learn a little bit about Islam. So anyways, I thought, well, after looking into what three of my kids graduated from a Christian school here, and I ran into the principal at one point, or the vice principal, I should say, and asked him, what are you teaching the kids in world religions? And he showed me the curriculum. He was very nice to share it with me. And it was all wrong. It was just the standard Islamic narrative on steroids. And I said to him, no, you've got to change it. So I actually provided my school with some materials, and I realized it needed something more. So I thought, at least the teachers should know the truth without having to really, really dig deep and buy all of these books and look into it. And so there is another book called Islam in a Nutshell. So it is important for Islam in a Nutshell, a simplified resource. But if you see this cover, it's really easy to find on Amazon. But the thing about what I knew what was missing was something really, really easy, something very, very easy to pick up and find a whole bunch of information put simply and clearly just on like one page. I mean, literally, you can pick up the book, pretty much open it anywhere, and the topic is dealt in 1 or 2 pages. I have 13 pages of endnotes for this booklet, which is just absolutely amazing. So if you want to look at anything else, you can. 5 pages of bibliography. I actually have all those books, by the way. It's the book has been really well received. And by lots of people who don't really want to look into it super deeply, but just to give them a little bit more knowledge, because as I think you and I were talking about, lots of people think maybe we have the same God, or if we don't exactly have the same God, we're pretty close that really it doesn't matter. We all believe in Jesus, supposedly,
True. I mean, so do Gnostics, right? They believe in Jesus too.
Yeah. And so do Mormons.
So do Mormons. Mormons also believe in Jesus. Exactly. It's all exactly the same, carbon copies.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny. So that's kind of that was the reason for doing it. Is I just found, and really, I tell you, the big push before we get into anything else for this was my town. We do have a small mosque here, or we did have a small mosque here. Not very many Muslims. A few years ago, about 10 years ago, and they brought in with the senior center in town, the local. I can never ever say this name right, but Amadeus. They brought in 2 imams and one lady social worker, two imams from Toronto, and the social worker was from Winnipeg, and flew them all out here, and they gave the speech. Now, they didn't allow you, there was no back and forth, and they had a moderator who obviously knew nothing about Islam, but they didn't have anyone challenging them. And I only heard about this at the last minute, and I got a ticket. I ended up in the front row, which was so perfect, let me tell you, because I was the one, all 16 of my questions that were put in there, obviously people didn't know really enough to ask, all 16 of my questions were pulled out, and I knew the guy was lying, so I was going like this, and I was going like this, and I was pulling my nose out, and
Right.
I was shocked. I was so shocked they didn't have anybody to counter them, that I wrote a scathing letter to the senior center and just said, you have done so much harm to our city by doing this. And so they invited me to come and teach classes. Well,
Oops. Seems like Karen's just disappeared. I know that. And she's back. Hold on one second. Welcome back.
Okay. Ooh, wonder what happened there.
You
Anyways,
yeah.
the jinns are after me.
Allah works in mysterious ways.
Indeed he does. Indeed he does. But anyways, the Ahmadi community were going to file a human rights complaint against me. So
Wow.
against the senior center, yes. And they said, you have to stop. They don't want anyone except them teaching Islam. And it was all over predestination, and that Muslims are slaves to Allah, and so they have no free will, and that under Christianity we are God's family. And it was all over me saying that they stopped the classes, and well, they just didn't like I was questioning anything anyways.
I've discovered that they really dislike such questioning because it really rapidly unravels their story. It embarrasses them. And of course, that is against the Sharia, to bring embarrassment to Islam. And obviously, they consider that harmful, and
Yes.
they have to take action. But it really shows that one person without a PhD in Islamic studies and who doesn't speak Arabic can take effective action if they're willing to stand up.
Oh, absolutely. And, it was really interesting because about maybe 6 months after this event happened, a group of the seniors got together. Now, it was a humanist group. They got together and they asked me to do a bunch of lectures. And I said, okay, well, you tell me what topics you want to learn about. So I did, I did Mohammed. I did one on women. I did one on Islamic slavery. I did one on women, Sharia, of course, and thanks to you, I had a fair bit of material to use. And there was Palestine. I did Palestine, and I did one on Palestine, and there was one other as well. And yes, one person can make a huge difference. I was one of the humanist fellows who had been a Christian almost all his life until he was about in his 60s, and I don't know why he lost his faith, but he was trying to talk me out of doing it, saying, I've got Muslim friends, this upsets them, we shouldn't be upsetting them. And I just basically said, well, people need to know the truth about the ideology. And it's we don't know the truth. There isn't enough easy access to information out there. People don't know which way to turn. And so again, that's why I thought, writing just an unintimidating book would be a really, really good small part that I could play in fighting this ideology.
Right. I mean, really, really fascinating. But what made you feel that you had to fight this? What was it about Islam that made you feel that you have to push back, assert the truth or your values, and then that you saw Islam as antithetical?
Well, okay, so the very first thing that I wanted to know the truth about Islam. I wanted to start learning about it. I had kind of been on the edge of it for many, many years. I'm in my mid 70s now, and back in the 70s, I was working in the bank during I was working in a bank during the Iranian Revolution, and we ended up with tons of Persians coming to Vancouver, and they would come in the bank after hours with suitcases full of money and gold, and they were the nicest, most wonderful people. And then I would see these pictures on the news of all, and their women were gorgeously dressed, and I would see pictures, of the burqa clad tents walking around, and I just found that really worrisome for women's rights. Now I was I was young at that point, so I didn't really delve into it. And then I saw that movie, Sally Field's Not Without My Daughter, and I was really moved by that. Right. And then Barbara Walters had a couple of interviews, or maybe just one, with Betty Mahooty, that the movie and the book was based on. And again, that piqued my interest. Then I moved to another town. We ended up with a bunch more so-called Persians in our town. And my girlfriend got involved with one of the fellows. And it started off as a fairy tale, and then it moved into exactly Betty Mahooty's story, except luckily she didn't leave the country. And I just thought, what is it about women's rights under this ideology? Like, what? I mean, I saw, obviously, I had experienced violence in the home myself from a spouse. And so, I mean, I knew that had gone on. It certainly didn't matter what ideology, it's just men and women. But that just really, really puzzled me, because Vicky's story absolutely mirrored just how everything went along and the change in him. And then 9/11 happened, and then I started just trying to find books on it to learn. And really, the internet was just happening. There wasn't very much on. I don't know, I just felt I had to learn more. And then I found Bill Warner stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was really the first guy that I came out with, and got some of his resources. And then more and more things started coming on the internet. And really it was, it was a bunch of it. I know you were on there, Dr. J was on there. And then during COVID was really when I ramped it up. No, it was the talk at the senior center. And then I thought, no, I've got to get some more information. And then I took Dr. J's classes. And actually, I'm on my third time around with his classes, because it seems that the instructors find out more information. They give more books. And, I am making a difference, because I've talked to my church, who don't want to do anything about this, but I will be teaching some courses on Islam. I can advertise in the church. Let me tell you, I've been trying to get them to do a session, a weekend session, because I go to a very, very big church, and we've got lots of room. We could easily do a session. Anyways, I'm trying everything to get people to wake up, especially because our town here is now being, 10 years ago, you never saw a woman in a hijab. Now we've got totally black-faced, covered women walking around our streets. And it's just shocking. I do some relief work in dental offices, and I see that these people are being brought in. They're being paid way more than I'm a senior. I'm single. I'm a senior, and they get more benefits than I get from my government, and they get supported longer than I do.
Why is that? What do they contribute? What do they bring that governments are so generous towards them? They let their veterans and their own people sleep on the streets, and they bring in people who are illiterate in English, in their own language for that matter.
Yes.
Who do not work, who bring 14 people in their family,
yes,
who don't work, and they all get benefits. They get accommodation, they get free medical, free dental. They get bus passes, they get train passes, they get cell phones, they get free internet, they get free food. Like, why? What is this?
I don't know. And you know what I find is shocking is they first come in under federal benefits, And then after their couple of 2 years on federal benefits, then they move to provincial benefits, and they still aren't required to work, or you know they get their medical free and their drugs almost free and everything like that, and it's just very, very frustrating. And so I'm trying to, and of course we're so tolerant here as Canadians, to our great demise, and I don't want to see Canada changing. So I'm trying to make people be aware. And I've got a page or two in here. I don't deal with it all that much, but I do talk about the Muslim Brotherhood. And I know quite a fair bit about it because of the Holy Land Foundation trial in the States. And if you take a look at the Muslim Brotherhood manifesto, it lays it out very clearly what CARE is the Council on American Islamic Relations, exactly what they're trying to do. And they are trying to infiltrate all of our politics, all of our institutions, in order to turn them over to Islamic institutions. They're doing that in Europe. They're doing that in England, and they're making a big stink over here. They're very noisy over here. I always want to call her Elagabalus, but that's not her name. She's the head of the NCCM, the National Council of Canadian Muslims, and she's always in the paper here, and now she's complaining that the government isn't doing enough to denounce Israel and what's happening in Palestine, and it's making Muslims feel unwelcome in our country. Well, I've got a couple of really good choice words that I'd like to say to her, which I won't say on her channel.
Why do conflicts between Bangladeshis and Pakistanis that belong in that part of the world suddenly explode into violence on the streets of Toronto, or on the streets of Luton Town, or Belfast? It's insane. And we're just importing tribal conflicts. You're importing third world problems. And I think people are rightly upset over the fact that your taxes that you've worked hard for your whole life are going to, you've worked hard for your own benefits, and you get less benefits than someone who brings in a whole bunch of family that are dependents, that do not work, that get a better lifestyle than you. And these people are unvetted. There's just, I think we all know the problems here. And this is a question that I think if the legal process, as it has failed, and the political process has failed, then people are being pushed into a corner, native Brits. And they speak of diversity. Well, look, I don't think Palestine is diverse enough. There's not enough European white people. There's not enough Christians. I don't think there's enough Hindus. I think we need to start importing a lot of Christians, Hindus, and especially blonde Europeans into Gaza.
And black people.
Say again?
And black people.
And black people. In fact, you know what we need to do? We need to import more white people into South Africa. There's not enough diversity. I think we need a lot more. Do you know, historically speaking, I was watching an account on X recently making comments that, us Pakistanis here in England is because of revenge for colonization. Now, there's like a billion different countries that have now, nationalities that have come in, and they all say the same thing. I see it all over, black people, brown people, whatnot, saying this. Well, this is because of colonization. However, at the very peak of the colonization of Southeast Asia by the Brits, there was no more than 167,000 Brits in all of Southeast Asia. That's all of Pakistan, India, and whatever other countries you can think of.
Right.
So I think what would be fair is that everyone sort of pulls straws. 167,000 of them get to stay in the UK, and the other 7 million leave. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, and then to kind of get it back to I think that is absolutely great. Let me say one more thing. The colonization it's always the West's colonization.
Just pause a moment. Sorry to interrupt. Islam invading Karma is Canada. Islam invading Canada is karma. You invaded the native owners of the land. Muta Don, first of all, those are just blatant lies. those Canadians, those early Canadians, First Peoples, whatever they want to be called, they never owned any land. They couldn't even read or write. They were, the technical term is savages. They were primitive savages. Now, if you consider North America, many of them were actually cannibals. They were slave owners, and they were brutal in their genocides. These were not little lambs skipping through the valleys. These were murderous, deadly tribes that were happy to slaughter their way. They had no technology. They were primitive as just a little bit beyond the Stone Age, I would say. But then they never owned anything. They had no contracts. Property ownership is a modern concept invented by Europeans that you are redacting back onto a primitive people who had no such concept. If anyone owned land, it would be the tribal elder, the chief of the tribe. No individual would own any land. They had no such thing. These were people who migrated across the land. So you are falsely making equivalences that just don't mix. I'm sorry about that. And then, of course, they didn't do anything to develop the land. They plundered the land. They would rape the land. They would burn places to make some space. They would literally drive hundreds of buffalo off cliffs and murder them in the hundreds and the thousands so they could get pelts from 10 or 12 for their little tribe. So painting this view of the noble savage is false. It is a lie. And unfortunately, I am not impressed. So no. In fact, if you want to know who developed the world, when the whites got to all of these countries, you know what they found? Primitive, backwards tribes. So who brought electricity? Who brought flush toilets? As an African, I think I appreciate those two things very much. So yeah, if whites had not arrived in Africa and Asia and all these other places, you know what we'd still have in Africa and Asia? Cave dwellers. Now, I might be exaggerating slightly, but not by much. So you'd still have black people in my home country living in huts. So they didn't even invent shoes. 100 years ago, the blacks in my country didn't have shoes, had no idea what toothpaste was. They had no buildings that weren't made of sticks and mud. So really, no, I'm not going to buy your story. Karen, sorry, back to you.
Oh no, I was just going to say we talk about colonization by the whites, but we don't ever talk about Islamic colonization. Islamic colonization spread out from the Middle East, and I don't believe there was a Mecca, so it didn't, in my opinion, it didn't exist at all. But it spread out from the Middle East, and it went west, and it went east, and it went north, and northern Africa, so it went south, and it's still, most of that is still colonized today.
Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, look at these countries. This is the size of apparently, supposedly starting in Mecca, look how they've colonized all of these regions, imposing, in fact, it's not further than this. I mean, this is what it looked like in the 700s, right? Yeah. So now it's even larger. Now they've spread into Asia. Yeah. They've spread into half of Africa, and they've also spread further into Europe. So this is only what it was like. So Mutta, why do black people get a pass when they do? Why is slavery okay when black people enslave several times more people, several times over a much longer span than white people? Yeah. It's okay. Is there some kind of hypocrisy here, that some intellectual hypocrisy that fails to apply the same standard, or is it simply that black people generally, and I say this with sadness, but coming from the culture, black people generally are taught to hate white people. This is endemic in the culture. Corin, back to you.
Yeah, and anyways, but just to get more people interested and showing that, okay, we've got this here in Kelowna, we've got lots of people don't know anything about Islam. They don't understand the prayers. They don't understand. I mean, most people don't understand, like I say, the prayers. And so in here, I do have a book which compares the Lord's Prayer to the Islamic daily prayer. And
right. Go on, please.
Yeah. And so when I've spoken to a couple of people, couple of friends about it, and I've spoken to one city councillor and said, you cannot be saying these prayers. These prayers cannot be said in public. And they denigrate the Islamic prayers, denigrate Jews and Christians. And most people say, oh no, I can't believe that. And I say, well, yes, Yes, it does. And Mark Dury, he's ever so helpful. I use some of his material and I do quote him. And he's got some really good points here that, we really need to discuss this Islamic prayer. And so that you realize it should not be said out in public, and the meaning of what Allahu Akbar means, in the Adhan, if it's called. And luckily we don't have that being out loud here on loudspeakers or anything, but people just don't understand the deep significance of these things. And so that's why that's another reason why I thought I've got to just put all of this in so people will know, know a little bit about that. What's the difference between human rights? Well, we know the Human Rights Declaration, the 1948. Well, the Cairo Declaration of Human Rights. Of course, that's, we agree with it as long as it doesn't cross
violate the Sharia.
Yeah. So therefore it practically negates the whole human rights charter, the other one. And again, and I also put in here a little bit about one of my friends who is Ukrainian Catholic. We have one Ukrainian Catholic church in here. He was talking about what the Pope had said about the common word, and no, we do have common things. And I said, no, we don't. You have to read this incredible article by Sam Solomon, and I do have that in my book as well. The Common Word, Sam Solomon, and
let me bring that up.
It's on page 56, Al Makdisi. And so just for those of you who don't realize what it is there was an open letter that was sent to Pope Benedict at the time and leaders of other Christian denominations. And I'm reading from my book. In the open letter, the Muslim scholars state, in obedience to the Holy Quran, we as Muslims invite Christians to come together with us on the basis of what is common to us, which is also what is most essential to our faith and practice, the 2 commandments of love. According to one of the oldest and most authoritative commentaries, which are the Tafsir, on the Quran, the first and the greatest commandment is that none of us shall take others for lords beside God, and the second commandment is love of neighbor. Well,
it's false.
But doesn't that sound wonderful? And so the next part of the page, I have Sam's and their the rebuttal, the truth about the common word. And if you didn't see this rebuttal, you would think, well, the common word, yes, we've got common, we all love each other, and of course we don't believe in pagan gods. Lots of people don't quite realize what the meaning of this, taking lords besides God. And if you don't mind me, do you mind if I read the rest of this? And
please go ahead.
Okay. So they wrote a rebuttal on June 2008, and they named it The Truth About the Common Word in response to this letter that I mentioned earlier. So this is how the 2 gentlemen unpack the statements. They say, the love of God and the love of neighbor taught in the Bible and championed by Christ cannot be supported by even one ayat or verse in the Quran. Love of God, or Allah, in Islam is blind, unquestioning obedience to both Allah and Muhammad. Love of neighbor in Islam is restricted to Muslims, whereas the Christian expression is universal. Though the common word appears to put forward true common ground between Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and purports to be an invitation to seek even more common ground through dialogue, it is, in fact, a patchwork of partial Quranic and biblical references designed to give an illusion of a commonality worthy of Shakespeare's frequent treatment of appearance and reality, in which he demonstrates that oft things are not what they seem. A common word, Islamically speaking, means a call or invitation to come to common terms or to an equitable position. Yeah. And is based solidly on verse 364, say, O people of Scripture, meaning Jews and Christians, come to a word that is just between us and you, that we worship none but Allah, and that we associate no partners with him, for example, Jesus, and that none of us shall take others as lords beside Allah. Then, if they turn away, say, bear witness that we are Muslims, which, if read properly and analyzed from Islamic commentaries, which are the tafsirs and other scholarly exegesis in the Sharia, can seem to negate all the rhetoric that the Muslim invitation appears to offer. Now, having subdued the Christians and Jews of Arabia, Muhammad, and this is according to the SIN, Standard Islamic Narrative, sent come to common word letters based on Surah 364 to the neighboring Christian rulers, inviting them to a so-called peace, but with a play on the words, Aslam Taslam, essentially, submit and be safe, or else face the sword. For, of course, peace from an Islamic point of view can only be peace once all surrender to Islam. And that's a really important point there.
Mm-hmm.
There will only be peace. Islam will be a peaceful religion, a peaceful ideology, once we all submit to it. And that's a really important point. Yeah. This play on words is very similar to the change of interpretations explained earlier in the paper regarding the identity of Christ, and is based on an actual doctrine within Islam, which is Hayal or Taqiyya, or legitimate perception. Oh, Heel, that's right. Yeah, thanks.
Heel.
Yeah, you've done some really, really good
thank you.
presentations on lying under legitimate deception under Islam, which states that when Islam is in danger or weak, it is acceptable and even prescribed to engage in necessary deceit.
Actually, can I bring up something on that point, since you've just raised it? I think that would be, just for the audience, for those who are new, thank you very much for joining the channel, and thanks to the new subscribers. And yeah, on this case, so now the most famous Islamic law book or Sharia manual or legal text, sacred law text in English, is called The Reliance of the Traveler and the Tools of the Worshipper. It references this text that I'm going to show you now. However, it does summarize it and add some of its own takes on it, but it has a chapter called Permissible Lying, and then it has a sub-chapter called Obligatory Lying, where lying is stated to be obligatory for Muslims. And it says here, now they do notice how they try to whitewash this. False speaking is permissible in some cases. Now, Jesus did not say, well, lie sometimes. Islam says, no, false speaking or lying is permissible, and sometimes lying becomes compulsory. So they are stating here, there are conditions where lying is compulsory, and then eventually you'll find out lying is always compulsory. False speaking is better than speaking the truth sometimes. So therefore, you must lie. And it says if a Muslim wants to compromise between two parties to preserve goodwill, then false speaking is lawful. Now, they mention the example here between two co-wives, but this applies across the context of to settle any disagreement. Then lying, so if you want to settle a disagreement, Allah does not consider that a lie. Now, if we disagree about the nature of Jesus, or if we disagree about the nature of God, then they are permitted to lie to settle that disagreement. So Muhammad allowed false speaking in 3 cases to bring a compromise between two parties. And he who settles disputes between two parties is not a liar. And the lie which he speaks in war, now of course we are the Dar al-Harb, Islam is constant at war, jihad is required until the entire world is under Islam. And let me just bring up, so notice it states here, there is no sin in that lie which benefits a Muslim or removes a harm from him. So this is just a very brief overview of the fact that lying is written about in the Sharia as obligatory. And so there is a great deal of, there are pages of this discussing how to lie, when to lie, and such. This is actually regulated as part of their legal system.
Yeah. And there's also a really, really good book called Islamic Doctrine versus the U.S. Constitution, and it's by Stephen Riley. That tells you that exactly what you've said is that having Muslims in positions of authority, you know, for example, as politicians or something like that, is very difficult because any oath can be said at all. They don't have to. They don't have to.
So they can break any oath if it's
Yeah.
not valid. Yes.
So it's just, you know, that's the other thing that we have to think about. And of course, we don't like to think that people are lying straight to our face because we are a very high trust society. But when we're faced with this kind of ideology, it makes it very tough. And you know, I do mention things like this in my book, and of course, I've got it included in the bibliography for people to investigate a little bit more. So I think this, in my small way, I'm just trying to make people aware of this ideology and how different it is from Christianity or Judaism or anything like that. It's just so different.
Mm-hmm. No, you speak very eloquently and sound really well educated on the essentials, on the things that, I mean, you know, you've boiled it down to the necessary to help people understand. Let's wonder on this. I mean, you've got here, we were talking about briefly the difference between, as you mentioned here, compare Yahweh and Allah, yes, Jesus and Muhammad, the Trinity and the Tawhid, heaven and paradise, daily prayers. I mean, perhaps can we talk about these two categories here, Yahweh and Allah? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. And then after that, the difference between Jesus and Muhammad. And then afterwards, we can go on to Abraham and how they obviously use the same vocabulary, but have a completely different dictionary.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So the biggest difference between Yahweh and Allah, and so Yahweh, especially because he is a triune God. So it's one God. We don't believe in a pagan God. We believe in one God who is made up of three persons: the Father, the Son or the Word, and the Holy Spirit. And so these three persons have existed in eternity since eternity and will forevermore exist. And they've existed in a family, like they've communed with each other, they love each other, they're merciful to one another, and the like. And so when Yahweh decided he was going to make creation and create people, he made us in his image, in that we can love, we can be merciful to one another, and he made us in love. And I won't get into the fall and all of the rest of that, but basically we are his children. Yahweh in the three persons is our Father. Our Father, he's our Father in heaven. And that's why our prayer starts, Father in heaven, we talk about. And so we are made in his image. So we've got the capacity for love, compassion, and all the rest of that. And so it's very familial. Okay, so that's the Christian view of God. Allah, though, he's existed for eternity, all on his own. So he's never loved anyone. While he's got all these 99 names that apparently tell his attributes, he had no one to love, no one to be merciful to, no one to be compassionate to, nothing. The reason why he made people was to be his slaves. Simple as that. We are to do his bidding on earth, because although there's huge contradictions with this, Allah cannot enter his creation, except for, again, and I won't deal with all those contradictions because we could go on to those for hours. So that's really the big difference. Also, with Yahweh has given us free will. So we can choose to follow him. We can choose to do evil. We can choose. It's not prescribed. Whereas in Islam, Allah has already set you up. He set you up right from the moment you were born. He has your fate is sealed. So even if you do all his directions, absolutely all the works you're supposed to do, because it's very works based, where Yahweh is grace based. You, just like one of the hadiths, which are the commentaries Abu Bakr, who supposedly was one of the 4 rightly guided caliphs, in one of the hadiths, and I can't quote it off the top of my head, but Abu Bakr says, I would not trust Allah if I had 1 foot in paradise, that I wouldn't trust him, that he wouldn't yank me back and throw me to hell. So unless you are a jihadi and kill in the name and be killed in the name of Allah, you have no guarantee of getting to paradise.
It's interesting to note that the only guaranteed path of access for lay people to paradise is to kill others or be killed in jihad.
Yeah.
That is the only guarantee of paradise for lay Muslims.
Yeah.
There is no guaranteed salvation otherwise.
No.
So it literally requires your death while committing murder.
Absolutely. And so those are massive, big differences in the ideology. And you can understand this whole idea of suicide bombers and why they're being martyred. So, there's just no guaranteed. So, I mean, that's kind of shocking right there. And also the way you get to heaven is shocking. And I'll describe that. So that would be on how to enter Islamic paradise on page 34 there.
The whole bodies are restored.
Pardon me?
I just brought this up here.
Oh yes, okay. So to enter Islamic paradise, so here you go. So when you do, so you're supposed to do all these works, and again, you've got angels put on either side of your shoulders at birth. One records your bad deeds, one records your good deeds. When you die, you face punishment in the grave. You get angels coming down with hammers that hammer your head, and you question your faith. And I mean, that can last for days or years or centuries. You have absolutely no idea about that. And then what happens after that? Once the torment of the grave and judgment day is here, everyone arises, and actually the narrow razor bridge, you've got to walk across that. Some people will make it fine. Some people will fall off. Some people will just get burned because the razor bridge is over hell. Now that's actually a Zoroastrian. That's comes from Zoroastrianism, actually.
But I think you're missing one element here, because you've got to crawl. Yeah, apparently you have to crawl across the bridge, not walk. Very cool. You may get burned. You may fall off.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Also, should you get to the other side and not fall into hell, you are required to punish others. You have to attack and beat and tear the flesh of others who make it across with you, apparently. So that's what I learned. You actually have to...
Yes, I did read that. I did read that at one point. As you know, I'm sort of limited for space, so I've put references that you can follow to find out more. Even just having to go across the razor bridge is bad enough. And then when you get on the other side, then you face judgment from all your family and friends. And yes, that's where, judgment includes physical punishment. They can tear at you. If you've slighted somebody, at the very least, you're faced with this horrible...
I mean, this is eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It goes against even Jewish law. It's the inversion of biblical commandments. It's the inversion of biblical morality. It's the complete opposite. Yeah,
it's just unbelievable. So and then now there's a couple of things. There really isn't supposed to be any intercession, but that's, again, there's all sorts of contradictions on this, and I didn't include all of that in here because, again, I wanted just a bird's eye view of the topic. But here's the funny thing: suddenly the Quran, if you've memorized it, which you're supposed to do, can suddenly turn into a pale man for you and intercede on your behalf and beseech Allah that, you were a great Muslim because you memorize the Quran. Now, if you've only memorized a few chapters, well, the Quran turns into a flock of birds. That chapter turns into a flock of birds and intercedes for you. And then after you've managed to get through that, you just hope like heck Allah actually opens the door for you at that point. Now, so you can see why Muslims are terrified of going through all of this, because I mean, this could continue, all of these steps could continue on for centuries and centuries and centuries in our time. And the only sure way to get there is through jihad, is from being martyred.
Now, it's interesting. There's the concept in Catholicism of purgatory, where
yes.
if you haven't quite become a better person or a good enough person, because only the pure can enter heaven.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't purified yourself, you go into purgatory, where you work on your purification, which is one concept. But then you look at Islam's concept, you are attacked and assaulted and tortured and punished by angels. And then you are yourself further punished by hellfire and terror, walking across a razor-thin bridge which cuts at you and rips your flesh. And then your family and friends and other humans torture you, rip your flesh, break your bones, punch you, torture you, assault you. I mean, that is horrific.
Yes.
I mean, that's, and the only way to avoid this is to kill or be killed in jihad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So wouldn't this drive these young Muslims to actually becoming jihadis, because then they will bypass or sidestep this inhumane process of entering paradise. And then they can intercede on behalf of, and in fact, if they do this, if they die in the purpose of murdering others to gain paradise as jihadis, then of course they can intercede for numbers of their own family so that they don't have to go through this.
Yes. Yeah, and then what's on the other side? What's in paradise? And also let's just say that if you do get sent to hell eventually, but it doesn't say when, eventually Allah will put you in paradise. So I'll add that there. But then what is paradise? Paradise for them is extremely carnal. For the men, and all these supposed virgins, perpetual virgins, and they've got the power of 100 men, and Satan's product, which is wine, because it does say in the Quran that Satan created wine. So Satan created wine. So there are rivers of wine. Why would Allah put Satan's creation? And I've had a few Muslims say, "Oh, well, it's because he takes the alcohol out of it and just leaves it as grape juice or something like that." But
really?
Yeah. Oh, at Speaker's Corner, when I was at Speaker's Corner in June, I had this Muslim woman say, "Oh, no, Allah's taken all the alcohol out of it." And then I said, "Well, then why would you call it rivers of wine then? It's it's just grape juice. Why not say rivers of grape juice then? Wine is wine, and Allah has clearly said that it's wine. And why would Satan's product be in paradise? And women, what's there for women and children in paradise? Yeah, the men get to have lots of fun.
Well, there are boys with large doe eyes that serve the men, and these boys look really good.
Yeah.
One has to wonder.
Yeah.
And also, what's interesting is in paradise, I mean, just because it is such a carnal concept of heaven, it's like the Zoroastrian concept of heaven, which is it's somewhere between a brothel and a bar.
Yes, that's a good name.
I mean, really, yeah. But then, but the women are white.
Yeah, the women are white, isn't it? Well, I think everyone's white, aren't they? Pretty much. It's awful. It's shocking.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite clear what they. I mean, so yeah, it's a little disturbing. It's very disturbing that the ideas that they are promoting. It's
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So so the difference between Allah and Yahweh. I mean, Allah is not a father. God is the father. He is caring. He punishes, but he also forgives.
Yes.
Right? He chastises, but he also, I guess, mentors. I'm not sure if that's a well phrased statement there, but Allah has slaves.
Yes.
And also then you've got, they're very different. I mean, they're very different characters as well. They're clearly theologically and philosophically they are not the same.
No.
The same at all. I mean, there are vast differences between them. I can't remember the offhand. I've actually written some detailed stuff on this. I cannot remember the details offhand right now. but I can check in a moment. But theologically and philosophically, they are distinctly opposite, contradictory characters.
Yes, absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. Yeah. And so it's important for people to understand that there are these differences. And like I say, I've got 13 pages of end notes. So, if anybody was reading my book and wanted to look into it a little bit farther, it's quite easy to find that further information.
Right.
Further
And then
information.
And then the difference between Jesus and Muhammad, that might be interesting because, and then, Abraham after that, because there's a few things that I thought that are really fascinating, just to give people an insight into what's in the book. And I hope can you send us the link? Did you send me the link for the book, or did I add it to, I'm going to get it up on, do you only sell it on Amazon?
Right at the moment, I only sell it on Amazon. Yes. Yes.
I'm just going to find it on Amazon, and then I will link it to everyone.
Okay. So, well, let me again just kind of take it from my book on page 32. When we compared Jesus and Muhammad, well, Christians consider that Jesus is divine. He's both the Son and the Word. Belief in Jesus absolves all your sin, gives you salvation, and grants eternity in heaven. Jesus performed miracles. He cast out demons. He is truth, so he does not lie. He didn't raid. He doesn't cause wars. He didn't behead. He didn't order deaths. He didn't allow rape. He didn't own slaves. And he came from the Isaac lineage of Abraham. He's foretold as a prophet. Oh, thank you. Yes, that's it. He's foretold as a prophet in the Bible. And his coming to earth, death on the cross, and resurrection brought a new covenant with mankind. So it's a fulfilling of prophecies in the Old Testament. Now, Muhammad's not divine. He is not able to intercede on, supposedly, but again, there's a contradiction because everything is a contradiction in Islam. He's not able to intercede on Judgment Day. He can't provide a path to salvation unless Allah has predestined. He permits Allah permits Muhammad and all his followers to break oaths and to lie. Muhammad sinned. Jesus, the Isa Jesus in the Isa Jesus in the Quran, didn't sin, but Muhammad sins. Muhammad planned 72 raids and participated in 27 of these raids. He only participated in one defensive battle, according to the standard Islamic narrative. He tortured people. He permitted rape. He captured, traded, and kept persons as slaves. He committed he was not and he ordered the beheading of over 600 men and boys, and he took all the women of that tribe as concubines and slaves. He murdered. He had lots of his opponents, even just opponents who a couple of girls who were poets. He ordered their deaths because they mocked him. He's definitely not a feminist. He married all sorts of women. Yeah, that's a great book there. That one there is a really good book. He married lots of women. Allah, of course, looked after him and changed a whole bunch of rules for him for his carnality. He committed adultery with his wife's servant. He caused the divorce of his adopted son, and he ended up marrying his adopted son's wife because he lusted after her, and then that ended adoption. So there is no adoption under Islam anymore. Now, they do look after orphans, and I do talk about that in another section. And he did not perform miracles, and he was possessed by demons on a number of occasions.
Witchcraft as well, succumbed to witchcraft.
Absolutely.
As well. And he even permitted his followers to worship a god from a different deity,
Yes.
along with his pantheon. And of
Yes.
course, they deny this now. That's the satanic verses.
Yes, and I do talk about that. I do have a page on the Satanic verses,
Yeah.
but maybe we'll leave that so that people can buy the book and look it up.
Yeah.
But yes,
No, but
yeah.
you're laying it out very simply, and it's summarizing a lot of good things. I just want to mention that, I mean, the idea of, look, Jeffrey Epstein has been in the news lately.
Oh yeah.
For at least the last 10 years, let's say. Jeffrey Epstein's been around a little bit.
Yep.
And, he's considered shall we say, a predator who predated on very young girls as young as 11 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we see similar behavior, of course, now in the UK. There's been this massive cover-up of girls as young as 11 and 12 falling pregnant. But
Yes.
it should be noted that while Epstein is considered a predator who predated on young women as young as 11 and 13, the Prophet of Islam married and had intercourse with a wife who was even younger than Epstein's victims, who was a great deal younger than Epstein's victims. And yet Muhammad is considered the perfect man, the perfect example for mankind, the perfect example for all Muslims to emulate. He is the sinless, perfect, ideal example for mankind. So how is someone who slept with a young girl of only 9 the perfect example for all mankind, the example chosen by Allah, and yet Epstein is a heinous criminal for doing the same thing with girls that are older than the victim of Muhammad. And of course, Muslims will go, well, at the time it was okay. So will you condemn Muhammad for being a sexual predator? Because by today's standard, if Muslims condemn Epstein, they have to condemn Muhammad even more because his victim was even younger. I mean, this makes no sense.
Well, let me tell you something that makes it even worse, Lloyd. And I'm sure you know, because you have all the digest of Muhammadan law and all of those books, is that Muhammad is said to have thighed her in between ages 6 to 9 because he married her when she was 6. And so I'm just going to let your imagination, I don't want to say it, but he thighed her, and that would be holding her thighs together while you can imagine what he was doing. And he also admonished, there are a number of hadiths where he admonishes other men for marrying older women. Why don't you take a young maiden? Because they're so much fun to play with in the bath. Now, baths in those days weren't big tubs of water. If we're thinking of the standard Islamic narrative, you take a jug of water, splash it on each other, and rub the water on you. So you can imagine his playing in the bath, what that meant. So this is the perfect example of mankind, according to Allah. Yeah. His example is perfect forever. Well, why would you want to follow? Clearly, Allah did not get it that today's morals would be different.
We're not exaggerating, and we are not exaggerating when we say that the founder of Islam is literally a PDF file. Yeah. And Muslims follow, revere, and are supposed to emulate a PDF file.
Yeah.
Imagine you had Jeffrey Epstein as the head of the religion.
Yeah.
You know, why would you accept that?
Yeah.
And here you've got a man who did little girl, even younger than Epstein's victims, and we are now all supposed to regard this as divine permission, as the holiest man to ever live, the wisest man to ever live, the greatest prophet ever, the perfect example of mankind, Allah's presence on earth exemplified. How you have Jesus, who was sinless. Even the Quran admits he was sinless. Jesus did not murder anyone. Muhammad permitted assassinations. And we can go through the Sharia and the Sirah and other sources and show this. It's unambiguous. Yeah. And of course, when I do speak about these things on social media, the abuse is quite vile. Muslims, it's amazing that Muslims deny their own sources as a way to tell us how amazing Islam is, and they deny their own sources in the defense of their religion. It's crazy.
Well,
they tell us how unreliable their sources are.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole takia, the whole permissible lying thing that it comes in there. And also, let's not forget that the idea of slander in Islam is a lot different than what we think of slander in the West. And so slander, oh yeah, there you go. Slander under Islam is saying something about somebody that they don't like, not whether it's true or not. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Yes,
the
that's
two references here, if he notices something bad, it is unlawful to mention it. This is slander. So to say something that is true is slander. In the West,
Yeah.
to say something that is false. And then, of course, the meaning of slander, let's go back here. Slander, and
Yes.
it states here, slander means to mention anything that a person would not like you to say. Not that it's false,
No.
but it's true, but he'd rather you didn't say it. That is slander.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Well, and so this whole thing is where, if we allow Sharia to come into the West, like what's happening in England with their 85 Sharia courts, and towns and cities filling up with people who want to live under this, you can see what would happen about free speech. We wouldn't be able to talk about Muhammad at all, except for to lie. So it's cognitive dissonance that these Muslims are living under.
Well, that to remember, we are slandering Muhammad by talking about his indulgences with a prepubescent girl. Of course, they will argue about the prepubescent, and they'll say puberty is an event. No, puberty is a process that takes years, and they will make all sorts of cartwheels and mental. They'll tie themselves into pretzels and tie the truth. And I mean, they are brilliant at their particular form of sophistry. They're hiyal, they're adab al-jadal. They're brilliant at that. But it does state from the Sharia, whoever insults Muhammad is to be killed, whether a Muslim or disbeliever. This is the law. Killing is prescribed on the one who insults the Prophet. Now, how do they define an insult? Well, it states that it's, in fact, just briefly, whoever insults Muhammad is to be killed, whether a Muslim or disbeliever. This is the view of the scholars. Scholars have consensus. Whoever insults him is to be killed. And there is unanimous agreement upon killing whoever insults the Prophet. And they say here that that insult is defined as whoever insults the messenger is to attribute a defect to him.
Yeah.
He is to be regarded as perfect. So if you attribute a defect, any imperfection to Muhammad, that is grounds to have you killed under the Sharia. Now, of course, the Sharia is not fully implemented, but of course, think about the assassination attempt on Salman Rushdie.
Yes.
Someone decided to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and look at the attack on Hatun Tosh. They tried killing her as well.
Yeah.
No,
you know what? I contacted a friend of hers, someone who knew her, and I told them they are going to make an attempt to kill her. I noticed the signs, things were escalating, and he said she wasn't really listening to that. She wasn't really, but I had, prior to that event, stated to some people, look, tell her this is going to happen. It's coming. Clearly, the signs are there. I mean, this was my job back in the day to deal with this and predict these things, and I knew it was coming. And they will assassination. In fact, hold on, if I can just mention one more item from this here. In Islam, assassination is permitted. It says here, there's killing due to the likes of these reasons to be according to a perceived benefit. They call this the political killing. It is for the imam to give a discretionary punishment with killing in those matters. So in the Sharia, a Muslim imam can instruct someone who is willing to conduct an assassination. This is lawful in Islamic law. This is Islam. Jesus instructed nobody to do murder.
Nope.
And I mean, these are vast differences. And this is the fruit of Islam. I mean, this is shocking.
Exactly. And this is what we're letting into our countries without knowing about this without any discussion on what the Sharia is, and don't give me all this stuff about moderate Muslims or fundamentalists. Well, the fundamentalist Muslims are following the fundamentals of Islam. They're following the Sharia. The other Muslims might not be good Muslims, or they rise above the ideology, but
they don't. I mean, if you're a Muslim, you subscribe to the ideology, and the doctrine controls it. They're simply operating under rukhsa, not under azima.
Yes,
but they don't interfere. They support it in various ways. There's 13 or 14 kinds of jihad they can get involved in.
Yeah.
But the only legally binding form of jihad, the only legally defined form of jihad, is violent warfare jihad, and that gives true reward. But also Muslims pay zakat, which funds jihad.
Oh, absolutely, it does. It's there. Yes, one of the 8 recipients of zakat is the jihadis. It's to further the cause of Allah. So whether it's done deceptively, whether it's done, like money going into organizations such as CARE and the National Council of Canadian Muslims or anything like that, that is jihad as well. Yeah.
Yes. No, I mean, there are numerous types of jihad as defined by the scholars. I mean, this is all very disturbing. And I like the comment here by Catherine M. She says, this is incredible. Muslims are going to lose their minds once Lloyd's perfect comparison of Epstein to Muhammad begins to spread and they can't refute it. Yeah, I mean, they'll simply deny that. They'll simply claim Aisha was 18, she was 21, she was 19. Yeah. They'll deny the hadiths. I mean, they will literally deny everything. In the X-Files, I love the X-Files series, the original series.
Oh, yeah.
And there was the smoking man, and he would always say, deny everything. And that's exactly what they do.
Yeah. Deny, deny, deny. Yeah. Well, should we take a look at the difference between Isa and Jesus?
Sure. Where is that? That would be fantastic. Yes.
Okay, that's page 30. Down to page 30.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. So Muslims always like to say, we believe in Jesus. We love Jesus more than you do. But there's some huge differences, but there's also some really interesting things in the Quran that they may believe in Jesus more than what they actually think. It's pretty interesting that Isa is most of Isa's the stories about him are based on Gnostic stories. So he's a very Gnostic person.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that's really interesting is that Mary is considered, she's the only woman named in the Quran, and she is a virgin, and she is also sinless as well. And so how was he born? How was Isa born? Isa was born from the Holy Spirit, or it's supposed to be the Spirit, Allah's Spirit, or called Ruh in Arabic, blowing into her womb. And there's 2 verses that say that. So somehow Isa is not made of clay like all the rest of mankind, but he is made from Allah's breath. And he's called the Word. Now, where do we get this name Isa from? Who knows? Because it definitely is not the Arabic word. The Arabic word is Yeshua or Yeshua. It's not Isa. Yeah. I think it perhaps might come from the Aramaic.
There is a 5th century reference, I think there's a 5th century reference that has been discovered now that is well documented in archaeology from the Jordan in a very sparse desert. But a Christian, what looks like an Arab Christian from the 4th century, writes the name Isa on a rock. It's an inscription on a rock, and that's in the Safayitic. They call it Isay, I-S-A-Y, basically. I could bring up the reference, I have it, but yeah, so that's the earliest we have from Safayitic.
Mm-hmm.
But,
right.
Yeah, so. Yeah.
Right. And for some strange reason, Allah gets mixed up in the Quran. He thinks that he makes a comment to Isa that why are you saying you and your mother? Oh, there it is. Why are you saying you and your mother are gods as well? So for some strange reason, Allah thinks um, that Mary, oh yeah, there it is. Oh, look at that. That Jesus and Mary are part of the Trinity.
Yeah. Oh, we can discuss that another time. Just wanted to show people it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's
it's crazy that, and then Muslims have to do all sorts of jumping jacks and contortions to explain that it doesn't say what it says.
oh yeah. Well, again, it's the deny, 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 even though it's right there. It's kind of interesting. And of course, you see all this stuff that, well, there was a small Christian sect that believed in it. Well, I mean, wouldn't Allah know that the majority of Christians don't worship Mary and Jesus? Or yes, of course, Jesus. Now, what's the other thing that is really interesting is Isa is called the Word twice in the Quran. Why would he be called the Word? Well, that's
If
something.
and if the word is separate, is a separate component of Allah's nature, then Allah
Yeah,
is not Tawheed, and then Allah's nature is now embodied in someone.
yeah,
And Allah is his father because Allah gave his word to apparently the angel Gibberish, who then breathed it into Mary's, the JJ, one night.
yeah.
But then Allah technically is the father of, he didn't just call him into being, he had her inseminated. So then he is the father of Jesus.
Yes, exactly. But of course, you would never get any Muslim to admit that. Now,
Mhm.
yes, and so the thing is that the word is considered to be eternal and uncreated because it's an attribute of Allah's. So wouldn't that mean that Isa is also uncreated and eternal? Like, there's just so many weird things that it's hard to even believe. It's hard.
They haven't thought through this philosophy at all.
No, they didn't. When they were pulling together stuff for this book, they were just throwing stuff in without thinking how it was all going to come out in the wash, because it is pretty it's just unbelievable here. And again, of course, they deny the crucifixion, even though it does say that he was crucified. They say that even though it does say in the Quran that a sins of, no bearer of burdens shall burden another with them. But of course, again, another contradiction.
But it also says where Jesus says, blessed am I on the day I was born, the
Yes.
day I was, and the day I died, and on the day that I'm alive again.
Yes, exactly.
Which is very odd if there was no resurrection and death.
Yeah. And Allah took Isa up to heaven with him. So he's up in heaven with him. So is he, or in paradise or wherever, he's there living with him.
Why did Muhammad not get that treatment? Why did Muhammad not get that special treatment?
And why wasn't Muhammad's mother revered? Why wasn't she sinless and a virgin? Why didn't that happen?
Well, they add that to the seerah. They actually add that to the seerah afterwards, where there was a light in his father, in his forehead, that everyone could see glowing. And of course, then that light leaves him. And of course, it enters his mom. And then they have the whole miracle birth all outlined in the seerah. And they literally do make Muhammad in the seerah into a deity.
Yes, yeah, they do. Yes. The light shone from her vagina, and you could see it in Syria. Yeah,
1,400 kilometers. Yeah, was she indoors at the time? Was she outdoors on the roof? What the heck?
I know. It's just the craziest thing. It's just the craziest thing when you get into all these stories and stuff like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And
sorry, one question before you go on. I just want to, before I forget. It's just that, ask Muslims. This may not be as well formed as I'd like it to be, but Muslims speak of loving Jesus and the whole this whole common word statement you read.
Yeah.
I have tied Muslims up in knots, and of course they'll just go around in circles. They'll say things like, "Well, how do you define love?" But I've asked Muslims, please show me where Allah teaches love of the kafir. Show me where Allah teaches love of the non-Muslims. Show me where he teaches you how to be loving to the non-Muslims. Muslim.
Yeah.
Show me Allah's love for the non-Muslim. Show me where you're instructed. And they always end up, well, there is no such thing. Allah
No.
teaches hatred. Certainly we can find that
Yeah.
directly linked to Abraham, and it's in their creed and so on. But just ask Muslims, where does Allah teach love for non-Muslims?
Well, he doesn't. I mean, Allah doesn't even love Muslims. You're a slave. A slave master does not love his slaves. You know, he might like a slave, but he certainly doesn't love them. Yeah, so there is no love in Islam from their God. That's for sure. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's for sure. Oh, and let's go back to this light thing, if I can just mention. One of the things that I've done in the book, and I'll just quickly find it here. I think. Yeah, here. I can quickly find it. So under so on this page here, on page 13. So it says here the pillars of Imam and Deen. So
Iman.
Yes, I know. I don't know why I always get that wrong. Anyways, one of the pillars is to believe in Allah's angels. They are beings created from light for the purpose of obeying Allah's orders. Okay, and then so then it talks about his messengers. His messengers are also made out of light for the purpose of obeying Allah's orders. Now, if you look in the green box just down below to ponder, yep, that's right there. I say, have you noticed that both the angels and the messenger Muhammad are made of light? Is Muhammad an angel? Like, I'm just trying to point out some contradictions and that's what my green boxes are. You know, I've got things to think about, you know.
Well, the way that they justify this in the Sirah as retroactively is to claim that Allah created the universe for Muhammad. But then, of course, if you read different variants, it'll say he created the universe of Muhammad. So basically, Muhammad's essence, he created Muhammad out of his own essence, who is a part of his own essence, right?
Yeah.
And then he uses that to create the universe and the earth is created for Muhammad, where Muhammad will eventually be instantiated as a human, or be well, instantiated is the word I'm thinking of, as a human. I'm sure there's a better word. Mm-hmm. And now Muhammad's light is literally a part of Allah, but Allah takes a tiny, tiny fraction of Muhammad's light and he makes Abraham. No, he makes Adam. And then he makes Abraham, and he makes David, and he makes Jesus. Each of these are just a tiny fraction. That's why in the artwork, you'll find that, of course, they've got the halo just around the head. Absolutely. Whereas Muhammad is bathed in light because his entire being is made of light. So Muhammad is made from the light of Allah, and then everyone else is successfully made of less light, which is the story of the Gnostic monad and the eons, but applied to a different context. So,
right. And I do have one of those images in here somewhere of Muhammad's face being covered. Oh, if on you can see the halo on page 44. I've got a picture of that. That's one of the old paintings from Lucifer, bearer of light. Yeah, there you go. You see the halo. So these are all the prophets with halos around them with the light. This is one of the images, but there's lots that show fire around.
Around him completely. Yeah, he's surrounded with flame, and then the others just have their faces with the halo. Yeah.
Right. So there's and just while we're on this, people are saying that you're not supposed to be making images under Islam, but every single century there are images and images and images of Muhammad. So, you know, that was probably a very late Ottoman instruction not to make any more paintings of Muhammad. And then of course they started covering Muhammad's face after a while, but even still, they were still making images. There are so many images. Christine, what's her name? Christine. Oh, I've got it in the back here. She's got just the most amazing book of Islamic images over. Oh, that's something. Okay, we can talk about this. Here Now this will change the story a bit. This deals with the Islamic, with the Chinese connection. So recently, probably within about the last 10 years or so, the Tang court, so the dynasty, the Chinese dynasty from the Chinese court, have been all of the records have been translated, starting to be translated in English. And the Chinese connection tells us a completely different story about the beginning of Islam. And this here is a drawing that was found in the Tang Emperor's tomb.
Mm-hmm.
And the fellow on the far left, Dashi, or could be like Taji, Taiyei, it's sort a transliteration of the Taiyei tribe of Iran, and this is one of their emissaries, and they have great records starting from 637 all the way up until 800 of all the emissary visits, what they brought, what the religion was about, what their religion was about, what their holy book, their laws, and all the rest of that, because the Chinese were very interested. And they made drawings of all the gifts, they made drawings of all the emissaries, and they kept detailed records. And what's really interesting is that the Taiyei reference, exactly, that's a wrench for the sin. Of course, the Taiyei, the emissaries for the Taiyei, they were the ones who started talking about that they had just taken over everything. What year was the Tang Dynasty? The Tang Dynasty started in about 622 and went up to about 800, as I say in my book here.
Okay, great.
And so I talk about that in the book here. And the Taiyis, the Arabs, took over. Now, when I say Arabs, it's like I'm saying Americans, because they weren't a specific ethnicity. Yeah, they weren't a specific ethnicity. It included a lot of groups, but it definitely was someone from the Taiyei tribe who had conquered the area, the Lakhmids, the Ghassanids, and all the rest of that. And so what they had done was they had gone to the Chinese court to say, look, we've got this in common. We started at the same time in 622, and this is what we're all about. Now, they never mentioned anything with their first visit there. They did not mention, I think the first time that they were there was 651. In 651, well, Islam was supposed to have been fully developed. They did not mention Islam. They did not mention a Quran. They did not mention a prophet named Muhammad.
But that's like the same problem with who was that? The first apologist to the Muslims. What was his name?
John of Damascus.
St. John of Damascus. Because now I've noticed there's great effort to slander and to undermine him as writing complete gobbledygook because his writings don't match the sin. But what if the sin is wrong and he's right? Because now see, there's a huge effort to basically derail everything he says and call him basically a crazy man.
Right. Right. But here we've got this other group that has nothing to do with any of them. They're powerful themselves. In fact, the Taiyei tribe calls upon them many, many times to help with, send an army out to help them. And anyways, what's really interesting is that, again, they don't talk when they first go for their first few visits before 750. They don't talk about Muhammad, Islam, or the Quran. There's nothing about that at all. All of a sudden, when the Abbasids take over and they send off their emissaries, and they've taken over this whole area because the Abbasids are in all of a sudden, the Chinese, in their records, note that all of a sudden the story has started to change. And they make...
Right.
There's a note of that. It's the story has changed, and they do make and the Tang court stopped in I think it was around 800, and there are many extant tomes that are still in existence today. Well, that's what extant means. That are still in existence today that talk about this. So this is really damning for the standard Islamic narrative, because you've got a whole other civilization that could write and read and made such detailed records that refute the whole standard Islamic narrative.
Corin, everything you're saying, it's like an Agatha Christie whodunit that you're basically taking us on here. Really, it's actually, I'm like, it's really compelling, everything you're saying. A question I've asked many times to myself and others is, just from the Quran alone, I mean, you take the story of Joseph that I'm doing with Osama at the moment, just based on the anachronisms, the issues there. I mean, they're claiming that Joseph was a Muslim. They're claiming that they worshipped Allah. They're claiming the Pharaoh worshipped Allah and all of that. You're like, but no one heard of Allah back 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. There was no Allah. They worshipped Amun-Ra. They worshipped a pantheon of gods. The Quran. Now, everyone can, that's a theological. No, the Quran claims to be the word of God, period.
Yeah.
It claims to be perfect truth, period.
Yes. Period.
You're supposed to believe it as fact, period.
Yeah.
So don't tell me there's the historical and then there's the no. This is supposed to be a truth based on real life events.
Yes.
So how can these anachronisms be true? They cannot be true. So just on that basis alone, you have the Quran is so full of crazy anachronisms, money and armor and all sorts of things that clearly came later. Descriptions and lack of detail and lack of, just, it can't be true. Now you get all of this. Where are the academics to call nonsense on this? Where are the academics to go, look, this is clearly fiction?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would hope at some point they would, like right now it's just this, there's just this culture culture of Islam of cognitive dissonance, because like you say, with all of the, and I've said it throughout our whole talk, the contradictions are just unbelievable in Islam. It's just incredible. And so even for the scholars to try and figure out, I don't know how any scholar can still remain a Muslim. And I think, well, look at the case of Yasser Qadi.
He just torpedoed the hadiths now.
Totally torpedoed the hadiths, exactly. And so things like this Islamic, the Chinese connection, that's not as out there in the public as it should be, and that's why I include it in my book, because it's a really important piece of the puzzle. They were so far removed; they weren't influenced at all, and they kept good records of everything. So that's really important.
Yeah.
Really,
I just want to tackle. Sorry, go on, please. Please finish your sentence.
No, I just saying. I think that the Chinese connection is a very important piece of the puzzle.
We can't just ignore or dismiss these, because sure, it might seem like a small piece, right? There's not a lot to it, but there's only not a lot to it because it's never been investigated.
Yes.
It's really, there's so much of this information that are the loose ends. There's so many loose ends that if they're unraveled, what will we find? Also, we know that Muslims are well known for destroying artifacts, for destroying evidence, for covering up. We know there were changes. I mean, there's many people talking about changes that happened once the Abbasids came in and so on after the Umayyads. Right. And we know that places have been destroyed. We know that Allah was around pre-Islam. Muhammad's father was called Abdullah. Oh, thank you very much, Silva Mubasid. Thank you very, very much. Really do appreciate that. He says, Islam and cost of Islam in a nutshell on Amazon. God bless you both. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, where was I?
The truth, all these little things coming up.
So yeah, once you unravel these, what will we find? Because they've not been investigated, these loose ends. And yeah, we know that Muslims have been diligent in removing and destroying evidence. There's no archaeological basis for Mecca, for instance. There's nothing.
Yeah,
and the whole Palestine, the way that they're spinning history and words to make Palestine a real ancient state or nation. Yeah. I mean, I've asked Muslims very simply, look, can you please tell me, name the first 3 Palestinian kings?
Mm-hmm.
What was their currency called? Do you have samples of their coins from 2,000 years ago? What was their language? What was their holy book? What was their religion? What did they build? What was their most famous? What were their temples called?
Yeah.
Because there was no such nation.
No.
There were no such people. So they are quite willing to lie. And I've had the most incredible abuse from people who can't answer me, but they will call me, you name it. They will say the vilest of things when I'm asking legitimate questions.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, this should really sink Islam if academics had courage, had integrity.
Well, something I think with us talking about, and again, this is my little part. People will buy the book. They'll start talking to their friends about it. It'll end up filtering out. I mean, look what happened with all the textual criticism about Christianity, and did all these things actually exist? All these different stories. A bit of an aside. What is so interesting, which is never ever going to happen in Islam, but when I was in London in June, I was there for the NAPC conference, and we went on this, I don't know, it was 2.5-3 hour tour of the British Museum, of all the biblical proofs that this proves what was in the Old Testament. This proves this verse in the Old Testament. This proves this story, the actual things right there in front of you. And one of the earliest writings of Yahweh, back thousands of years ago, and all of these proofs. Well, we're starting to ask Islam to come up with all your proofs. Come up and show us. We have them. We can show you what we've got. Show us what's happening in Islam, and more and more and more. As long as we don't let Islam overcome the West, we can keep demanding them to prove it. Just prove it. Show us your proof. Now, like you say, they've paved over Mecca. They've got all the tunnel. If there was any large archaeological find, which of course there isn't because it never existed before about the early 700s, not as a place. But they've got tunnels underneath because of so many pilgrims on top. The roads get too crowded. So they've got tunnels to get ambulances and police and all the rest of that. Surely, I mean, if you were sticking a tunnel in Jerusalem, in Athens, in Rome, in London, what are you going to find? Well, in Mecca, zip, zilch, nada. Not a single thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just look at the rock in Taif that they destroyed, and thank goodness we've got pictures of it. It's in Taif, which is Mecca is 3,000 feet below this little oasis town. This is for people who don't know, up on the plateau, up on the trade route. Taif is a little town that's on an oasis.
I've been to Taif. I've been there twice.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Well, I've been all over Saudi Arabia, believe it or not.
Well, I'm kind of describing it more for people out who don't know. Anyways, there was a rock inscription that talks about the Kaaba being built in 697. The Kaaba was built in 697. Well, guess what? The Saudis have destroyed that rock now. Doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Well.
Well. And there was also, and we don't have to get into the whole MHMD as a title as opposed to a name thing right now, but there is also a rock that was in Yemen. Thank goodness we've got pictures of it. And that's been destroyed. And that talked about a Jewish leader called MHMD, the chosen one.
In fact, yes, and that's actually that goes back to the 5th century, and that's actually to do with he was the Jewish king. He was from yes, I spoke about that in my discussion monotheism in my monotheism series, and they refer to MHMD as God, Yahweh, and his son Christos. They speak of him and his son Christos. And then also there's the simple fact that Christianity was far more widely spread across Arabia than people realize, along with all of when the Gnostics and heretics were kicked out of Rome.
Yeah.
because Christianity finally became established, and also kicked out of Alexandria, which were the main hubs of heresy. The vast number of them congregated in southern Arabia,
Yeah.
and they brought the heresies with them, and there was massive theological tussle between what's the real Bible, what's true, which is why we have the Jesus of the Quran literally performing making some clay birds, bringing them to life, which is a Gnostic story, a known Gnostic story,
Yes.
which has been dated to the mid to late 2nd century, of which the earliest manuscripts are only the 5th century. So you've got literally a Gnostic Isa, who's clearly not the Christian Jesus. He's a Gnostic, which is why the Quran has all these Gnostic fairy tales in it.
Yes.
And so, we need evidence. We want evidence. And I don't know why academics haven't written Islam off as a complete fabrication yet. The evidence is not ambiguous on this.
No. Well, you know what it comes down to, Lloyd? And you did, I think, a talk on this, is the money that's going into all of the universities.
Billions.
Yes. And so, of course, if these people want to keep their chairs and want to keep their funding, well, they have to tiptoe around this whole story.
Yeah, they can't come out and say it. You're right.
No, and so it's up to people, as far as I'm concerned, little people like me, writing a book, talking to you, doing classes, all of us need to be doing these little things so it can filter out, so that these academics have no choice but to admit what's happening. And
we need to. True, it is up to us, but I think we are educated enough. I mean, I can probably at this point walk rings around most academics who deal with this. I think.
Yes.
I think I know this. I've had PhDs tell me that I know Islam and the Sharia at PhD level. So,
absolutely, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think we know more.
Al-Azhar should give you a doctorate.
Thank you. I mean, we've got how many of us now on YouTube as lay people who probably can compete and outcompete imams?
Oh, absolutely.
We know this really, really well, and better than most Muslims, I believe. We know the sources. We have the sources. We study them. We write about them. We make notes. I'm a little OCD with the notes.
You're amazing. You're just amazing.
Thank you. No, I mean, what you're doing here. I just want to mention, Tom Bunnytail says, someone mentioned, I think it's Catherine or something, mentioned that we have the first king of Palestine. It was King Yasser Arafat the first.
Yes. That's right.
You're right. Found him. Got him. Thanks.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of the Raymond Ibrahim thing. I mean, Raymond Ibrahim is a very good. Jay did say he didn't think Raymond Ibrahim was a good historian. I think Raymond Ibrahim is a brilliant historian, a really very, very good historian, writes some fantastic works. I mean, sure, but I think there's room to take two sides on the did Muhammad exist story. I mean, I kind of leans probably somewhere in the middle. It's like the Muhammad of myth does not exist. But I think, to me, he's like a composite. There must have been a real character to base him on, or at least multiple characters he seems to be based on. So they've drawn from to me, he's a composite of 3 or 4 people, or Jesus and a few others. But I think there was a character, an administrative authority, like a king. What's the one guy from the 7th century? Sorry?
Umar?
Not Umar, after him, came after him. That does seem to have established the whole idea. And
that was in the 9th century.
9th century, yes.
I think it's the 9th century.
Yeah,
that's where Al-Kindi did that apology.
Something like that. Yeah, I can't remember his name offhand, but I know who I'm thinking of. And so it does seem to be there was someone who kicked it off, who coalesced the ideas and said, okay, look, let's make it like this, and they pushed it, and that became.
Court of Al-Mamun. I think it is. Actually, I can look it up really quickly because I've got it here. But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So basically, it seems like that someone took all of these ideas and said, look, we've got 12 different tafsir that can't make up their minds. This is going to be the official version now. Here's the official version, and off they went.
Right.
I mean, even if you look at the Jesus resurrection version, you go through the tafsirs, there's at least 7 different contradictory versions of that story of Jesus' resurrection. So eventually they just picked one and said, that's the official story. but there's no reason to pick that one over any of the others. So they simply had to make do. Abdul Malik. Yep, that's him. That's him.
Oh,
Yep.
Abdul Malik. Oh, okay. No.
I
He was
think there's a good case for putting him down as the guy that finally kind of he's the linchpin there, you know.
I don't
And
myself. I wouldn't agree with that. I think it comes much later. Abdul Malik. I think Abdul Malik was an Aryan Christian,
non-Trinitarian, yeah.
non-Trinitarian Christian, and so he did believe that Jesus was a prophet, but the Muhammad thing wasn't developed yet in 691, 697.
Yeah.
I think the Abbasids developed that. I think you're right. He's like a Robin Hood or a Macbeth or King Arthur, perhaps. You know, because King Arthur is all made up.
Yeah,
And
he does seem to have been very formative in some things. I'm not saying because this story develops until, I mean, we're looking at the Sharia was only finished in what, the 1500s.
Yes, exactly.
The Quran was only established as mutawatir in the 1500s.
Right.
And so therefore Islam was still, the Quran was still being developed in the 900s, it would seem.
Yes.
So
Right.
but Abdul Malik could well have kicked it off in a particular direction, and then
I think he did. Yes. I would agree.
So it's hard to be, for me, it's hard to be definitive because we don't know enough yet.
Right. I agree with that.
So I'm careful of being definitive because there's not sufficient evidence. But I think generally people are starting to converge on the fact that yes, the official narrative makes no sense, and people are generally converging on a certain point. You know, there seems to be convergence.
Well, kind of something that's really interesting is there's a book called, and you can get it on archive.org, and there's a book that you can get on archive.org, so anybody can download it and have a read, and it's The Apology of Al Kindi, Kindy, and you can download it or just read it. And Al Kindi, his family was really involved with the caliph's court at that time, and he had a very respectful disagreement. There you go. And he had a very Al Mamun. Yeah, I was right. Yeah, so it was at the court of Al Mamun. Yeah, early 800s, and it seems like there were still some questions about Islam and its form then. And this is quite an interesting read. I would suggest that you read this, and you can see it wasn't still quite, there were still some questions about the forming of Islam. But again, he's he has to worry a little bit about his head not being chopped off. But I think because of the familial relations between the caliph and the Kindi clan or family, it's you're right, Mel. Absolutely.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah. Anyways, this is interesting. It's a small read. It's not a very big book. I think it's only maybe 100 pages or something like that. Anyways, there you go. That's a little resource.
Yeah, and the Quran is being updated. You go now, you try and find some hadiths. They're missing. They redact the hadiths. They change the Quran translations. They remove odd sentences. I've had difficulty finding stuff in online sources because they're no longer there. Embarrassing hadiths. They are. The story's changing in real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are.
So tell us, go on with this. Go on further.
Oh, no, I was just saying that because we were trying to decide when all of this possibly had started. When it's
9th century.
Yeah,
the 9th century seems to be formative for the Sharia as well. The 9th century was formative. It didn't finish, but it was forming. There was something. There was clearly something, but it hadn't coalesced. And then in the 9th century, something happened to really tighten it all up. And then it still developed for several hundred years.
Right.
But the 9th century is formative.
Yeah, and that's absolutely, and that's exactly what the Tang court, the Chinese records, note as well. That that they do mention that the story had changed. So so I think we're onto something. I think it's coming together slowly.
I agree. I mean, yeah, amazing. Just everything. It's like this who done it, and we're chasing down the evidence. Feels like one of these action movies. You're trying to figure out what happened. Trying to solve the
Yeah,
mystery.
yeah. Where's Sherlock?
You are Sherlock.
Well,
Yeah,
oh, Mel is, not me. Let me tell you, Mel is the stuff he's been finding out, the little gems. Oh my gosh, this man is something else. Just the stuff he's been
yeah,
posting lately, not so many videos, but all the little bombs he's been putting
yeah.
up on his posts are just, gosh, Mel's amazing at his finding these gems.
He mentions where it says that it's that the English scholars are behind on this even more. What is crazy was that the English and the German scholars were at the forefront of this in the 20th century, the early 20th century, the 19th century, even the
Yeah,
18th century. You can go back as far as the 17th century. The
right.
Germans and the English were all sounding the alarm on this and calling BS on this then already. They were saying this is clearly fabricated. If you read the ancient works from the old English scholars, and then after World War II, somehow it all just stopped.
Yeah.
After the discovery of oil, I mean, clearly the Saudis had a little bit of money suddenly, and things changed.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I think we may want to also think about a little bit off the topic, but there were various English and even Americans who converted to Islam, and it may well be that some of those involved with the discovery of oil and funding the Saudis to develop their oil industry, some of those might be Americans or Brits who had converted to Islam, and they were thus invested in helping their compatriots and also then suppressing other narratives. So there's also, I mean, I also wonder how many of these in Parliament today, how many of these people are not converts to Islam? Like in the US, all of these converts have a loyalty. They vote along religious lines.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Interesting thought.
Yeah, Mel says they needed to buy oil from the Arabs. Exactly. Yeah, you can see. I mean, after 1930, after the late 30s, obviously the war was an interruption, but after that, it's like boom, that scholarship just disappears.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, you can find amazing scholarship prior to that. So,
Yeah. Interesting for sure.
I,
Yeah. Go ahead.
have you noticed the more truth is leaking out, the more violent they are? Just on that point, Al Qaeda had a plan, a 5-stage plan that they were implementing, which was supposed to be implemented in 2021, which I would say was rudely interrupted by Emperor Donald Trump. But this doesn't mean that they've given up, because Al Qaeda has certainly come back. They're resurgent again. However, the Muslim Brotherhood has a 100-year plan, and that plan is due to be accomplished in 2028. And of course, this does include violent overthrow of the US or weakening of the US to be able to take it over. And they speak of social media dominance and dominance of the airwaves, infiltration of judiciary, the police and such. And they are busy doing this all over the world. So they are heading towards a kickoff where they are supposed to rise up. Jihad is revolutionary. Islam is a revolutionary religion, just like Marxism is revolutionary. The idea parallels jihad. So socialism is, and Islam are both, they believe in violent revolution to bring the change. This is what they believe in. They don't believe in peaceful change. So this is the 2028 is the date where they believe they will achieve dominance of the Western world. So bear that in mind. These guys are on a timeline.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know something? Absolutely, they're on a timeline. They've been on a 1400-year timeline. It's not going to change. World domination. It says that in the Sharia. We know that it's the final religion that will rule the world. You know, it says that. What is it? In book W 4.0 or something. I've copied it verbatim as almost the last page of my book. Yeah, so there is a plan. So we need to wake up. We were going to talk about Abraham a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's the last topic. We nearly 2 hours. You know that time has flown.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, I'd be happy to welcome you back if you want to, do some more.
Oh,
but yeah,
sure.
let's look at Abraham and.
So okay, well, let's just talk about Abraham. I would mention that I've got 2 pages worth of Abraham, and I have to thank Dr. Mark Dury from Australia. When I was going to put in a bit about Abraham and I was doing my research, I came across his work and I thought, oh, Why reinvent the wheel? And he's such a dear man. He just said, just copy my whole thing, just put it all in your book, and obviously give him credit for it. So I just want to say that, I mean, this information is there, but he just had it laid out so nicely to show that, you know, the Abraham of Islam is not the Abraham of Judaism and Christianity. And, you know, I won't read through this whole thing, but I'll just make a couple of their big claims. What Islam says is that Abraham was a Muslim, he's a prophet, and as a symbol, replaces or restores Islam to its proper place of being the one true faith, because Jews and Christians lost their faith. They lost their Islam, and they corrupted and distorted their texts. So that's kind of the whole fallacy of what behind it. Mohammed warns the Meccans of imminent danger. So that kind of follows along, supposedly, of the example of Abraham as a model of forbearance. You know, he's a monotheist amongst all the polytheists. And, you know, he has to strengthen the believers. Yeah, there we go. As they wait. And again, I'm not going to read this word for word. It would take 20 minutes. But Allah states, here we go. There was, and we'll read this here, a few paragraphs down. There was a good example for you in Abraham and those who were with him when they said to their people, surely we are free of you, that is Jews and Christians, and what you serve instead of Allah. So Allah is saying that Jews and Christians aren't serving Allah. We repudiate you, and between us and you, enmity has shown itself and hatred forever. Okay? Enmity has shown itself and hatred forever until you believe in Allah alone. So this whole thing about, oh, we all believe in the same God is pure nonsense. It's an Abrahamic fallacy.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, yeah.
This is the God of hatred.
It is
Islam is hate speech.
Yes, it is the God of hatred. Yes. And I'll kind of leave it there. Again, I want to leave it so that there is some stuff. And, you know, I wonder whether or not Trump's son-in-law, was it Jared somebody, you know, when they came up with this Abraham Accords, it's an Abrahamic fallacy. You know, it sounds really nice, but I just wonder if he knew anything about where Islam stands on Abraham as compared to Jews and Christians when they made the Accords up. I don't know. I sent Trump a book, by the way.
Sometimes diplomats have to do things for diplomatic reasons. They've got to, you know, they've got to weigh certain things up, and the facts might need to be overlooked. Granted, but you would hope that in the background they're not that stupid, because at least if the Muslims have made that claim, they can hold them to a standard that they've set themselves. But hopefully, I'm not fully convinced by Sebastian Gorka, for instance, as the guy dealing with Islam, that he fully understands the Sharia, for example. I'm not convinced, you know. So yeah, I can understand why politicians may need to make the decisions they need to make, you know, for unity's sake and so on and so on. But you'd hope that in the background they understand the facts.
I would hope so. But anyways, there's an awful lot more there about Abraham, and it's pretty interesting. And clearly, we do not believe in the same God. We do not believe in the same prophets. Oh, Jared Kushner, that's right. Yeah, we don't believe in the same God, the same prophets. There isn't a similarity. It's just a borrowing of stories and names. That's it.
Right. Mel says most leaders haven't the time to educate themselves in Islam, but then they pay advisors who make a lot more money than I do.
Yeah.
You know, that's just negligence if these advisors are either compromised or ignorant. You know, these people come out with their Harvard PhDs and know less than me, you, and Karen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that's true.
You know, that's really disturbing to me, that you have these deficient advisors or people who aren't willing to just state the truth.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I mean, that's disturbing. So yeah, I mean, I've certainly been enlightened. I mean, I know Islam very well, but I've been enlightened, and I've been reminded of things that
Oh,
I
thank
don't think about very often, which we realize how important these things are, and also perspective. You know, perspective that everyone else can deal with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I really hope that that my book does help. Just to, I mean, not everybody's going to get into it as much as you, me, and Mel. That's for darn sure. But forewarned. Oh, thanks, Mel. A bit of forewarning is important, and just a little bit more knowledge is just will do the world of good for all of us. I believe.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. So yeah, we should call it. This went actually longer than I anticipated. The time flew, and I looked up and I realized, wow, nearly 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah. No, it's
Incredible. I did not expect, I mean, the time to fly so quickly, but I mean, yeah, I mean, you bring a really great perspective to the discussion of Islam that I think even I could relate to. I learned new things, I relearned old things, and I also gained a simpler perspective that others can easily grasp. I mean, Mal and myself and you probably work at a much higher level generally. But yeah, we realize we need to rope others in to understand the issues here from an academic point of view, historical, theological, philosophical, and also just the social threat.
Yes. Oh, that's a big one. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's in my heart. I want people to know more about Islam, to learn about it, and to be able to ask questions, of the politicians. And if all of a sudden the Islamic prayer starts being said in city council meetings, well, no, you've got to stand up and say, no, this cannot happen. And
when they ban Christian prayer, but they're saying the azan, when they're banning Christmas, but you having a halal slaughter. No.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree. Good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to the audience, thank you very much for the amazing participation. Thank you, Mal. Thank you for everyone like Hope in Christ and Philip and all of those with a fantastic commentary. Really, I enjoy the comments. It's really always interesting. Thanks for the questions, the engagement. And yeah, I think this has been a great learning session for all of us, a great reminder of things that we need to keep our eye on, and please tell people about this session. Please tell people about the book. And yeah, also for those who supported the channel, thank you for the earlier donation, Silver. Thank you very much. For those who'd like to support the channel, obviously those are very much appreciated. I do not make a great fortune on YouTube. I was not able to buy my Maserati, sadly. I know there are people who probably do make good money on YouTube. That's not me. But also with someone's help, I was introduced to someone. I had a meeting with someone yesterday. I am attempting to, I'm going to be hiring a part-time assistant. No, I'm not making $2,000-3,000 a month. No, I make far less than that. But I've got someone who is willing to assist me at a modest fee, and I'm willing to reinvest some of the money that I'm making to try to improve things on the channel. So I'll be trying to invest some money into some efforts and to try to build what I do, make it bigger. I'm nearly at 25,000 subs. So I'm probably 2 days away from 25K. So yeah, things are growing. Thank you very much for all the support. I would not have done it without you guys. And Karen, thank you. I mean, this has been amazing. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience has. And tell us again where everyone can find your book and find you, and maybe a last word on positive things that we can all do, because you had a positive effect, and your book's having a positive effect. The talks you're doing. How can we as individuals have a positive effect, within our own circle to help spread the message?
Well, firstly, if you don't know anything about Islam, get the book. It's found on Amazon in every single country. I'm hoping to put it up on a couple of other places as well, but I haven't quite got that far. And how can you help? Well, you can help by just talking to your family, your friends. When something happens, you can talk about it. You can also use the book to ask if you've got a Muslim friend. You can say, well, look at what this woman has said about comparing Jesus and Esau. What do you think about what what she says about getting into paradise. What do you think about this? What's your point on this? Because I can tell you this, most of us in the West know a lot more about Islam than most Muslims do. I've just found that so often is that I know more about them. Well, I certainly know more about Islam than a lot of Muslims do. But you can also start, if you're attending church, you can also maybe ask your pastors if some sessions can be done. You might have better luck in your countries with some small community groups or anything like that. Anything just to get the conversation going and open it up. And again, my book touches on topics very lightly. It's not intimidating, but I provide 13 pages of endnotes and 5 pages of books, which is a huge portion of this book, so that if you need to, let's say you've formed a little group to talk about it, well, where do you go next? Well, it's all in here for you, that you can, if you're interested to go farther, you can. But all of us in the West, if we want to maintain our beautiful societies, I mean, everything needs work on everywhere. So please don't think I think this is absolutely perfect, but really, as far as humankind living in a great civilization, we need to keep this. We can't let Islam, which is very supremacist and very, very missionary-like, evangelical. They're very evangelical, if to put it that way. We have to stop it in its tracks, and we need to bring them all home to Christ. Is really what we do. They're on the wrong story. They need to read the right story. And I'll leave it at that and thank all the viewers.
No, thank you. Wow. No, thank you. Yeah. So guys, we can do something. I know we don't have, we don't have billions in Qatari budget, but you can talk to the people next to you. You can talk to people at work. You can talk to people at church. You can talk to people at the football club or at the bar or whatever the case might be. It's possible at church. Start where you can. Do what you can, and because the truth is waking people up. Look at what's happening in the UK. People are waking up.
Yeah.
You start to see, and these are all grassroots things. These are starting from the bottom up. So you have power. You can be that grain of sand that eventually makes that avalanche. You can grind those gears, right? Those drops of water that make the flood. You can be that. So yeah, don't think that you are powerless, because the powers that be do want you to feel you are powerless so that you don't do anything. But remember that, for good men to do nothing allows evil to succeed. So let us be good men. Let us speak up, and good women like Karen, and let us speak up. So thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone. This has been amazing. And yeah, we'll do this again. I think this will be fantastic to tackle some topics. Okay. And yeah, everyone, again, have a wonderful night. God bless, and be inspired, everyone. And thanks, Mel, for showing up. Always great.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Okay.